Welcome everyone to week 1 of DPL Season 8 for the Nature's Madmen. I'm here to recap all of the games, everything that has happened in week number 1. And I'm going to go through all of the games sequentially and kind of just give you a brief breakdown of kind of what just happened and kind of a brief analysis of my thoughts on the game and the matchup and the results, obviously. And it'll be a mixture of some just the replay playing in the background while I kind of talk over it, and a mix of some live highlights when I've been able to catch the games live, whether that be by myself or in call. So, hope you guys enjoy. Alright, we have game 1 here, Bird versus PZZ, and as you can see, there is a Blacephalon mirror, and that was kind of the tricky aspect of the match. But yeah, basically, Eldegoss and Azelf were benched for Bird, and Scolipede surprisingly was benched from PZZ's side. That could be a pretty threatening mon with its offensive sets here. With SD and Speed Boost, but also could be an annoying lead with Endeavor Spikes. So very good for Bird that it was in fact benched here. But no Scolipede basically mitigated the setup threats to just Necro and Feeny, which kind of emphasized the importance of Melmetal. But Zapdos would be the most difficult to force progress against if it is Helmet. And Bird doesn't make really any reads that are on the obvious pivots. So it would be very effective with the helmet set there, but a random misclick, according to Bird. He sent his Blacephalon in the match against the opposing Blacephalon. According to him, it was a random misclick. I've had my fair share of unfortunate misclicks in the DPL back in my debut back in Season 2, but as you can see, the Slowpoke there kind of just absolutely got body bagged by a Shadow Ball there. But there wasn't a whole lot to pivot into a poison move for Dragouchi here. And it was kind of the best spammable move left in this matchup, especially with Roxa, would punish Blacephalon and potentially Zapdos if it was Helmet. But Necrozma comes in here, and he is able to use his Melmetal here and basically self-destruct. I thought that was a bit annoying because he kind of lost something for Feeny, but he still has Dragouchi here, but he ends up sacking Dragouchi, which was probably the worst play of the game. He had plenty of routes to go with winning with Diancie in this endgame here. If he broke effectively with Blaze plus Melm, he would have been able to kind of handle things here, but Feeny started to set up with Calm Mind, and because he errantly sacked the Dragouchi versus the Blacephalon, there wasn't a whole lot left at the end there for him to do. I mean, this Slowbro really didn't do anything else, especially if the Feeny was seeing Draining Kiss, so he could have sacked it to the Blacephalon there. And he did lock Psyshock, so he would have been able to click Teleport for free, as he probably went into his Feeny or his Zapdos. And if he went Feeny, he would have been able to go hard into his Dragouchi and start spamming Sludge Bomb. So it was a pretty clear endgame there for him, but unfortunately, he does end up getting swept by this Tapu Fini, and there's not a whole lot that Bird could have done once he sacked Dragouchi. I mean, he tries some Encore sets here, doesn't really do a whole lot. And yeah, basically the game is over and Feeny wins. Not much to do there. They're down 0-1 at this point, so they're going to have to clutch up in the remaining games. Let's move on to game 2. Alright, we got game 2 here. It was basically Blitz versus Luxance. Blitz is using the Raging Bolt Terra with the Torn team, and he's also facing Luxance, who has like the Terra Gallade, Terra Heatran, which was benched. So they in fact brought no normal resist versus the Braviary, which is Terra normal. But there was a nice lead Abomasnow set. Immaculate Eevee to dodge Bleak Wind and also freeze the Torn on the subsequent turn. Very unfortunate for Blitz. Would have been a nice key piece to keep around, especially for Masquerada and Gallade later on. But at some point, outside that, once that freeze happened, there was really not a whole lot that Blitz could do. He basically brings in his Braviary and sacks it to the Rotom Wash. Doesn't KO. He loses the Braviary, and basically any way he could have won was kind of just gone. I mean, if this at this point though, if the Masquerada was Scarfed, which I think it was confirmed to be Scarfed, there wasn't a whole lot he could have done anyways. And Garchomp would have won in the end, which it ultimately does here. But Raging Bolt can't really do much versus the Weezing. He's able to hit it. He's just able to spam Pain Split to chip it down. It's a pretty effective way for them to actually get chip. And he brings in the Samurai. He brings in the Meowscarada. He's going to click U-turn for free. And then Garchomp should be able to clean up the rest of this game. I guess it clicks Flower Trick. But yeah, it's pretty good. I think the Treads comes in. It is the speed boost. Obviously, it's probably going to be a Yachi Berry Garchomp, which covers, you know, this type of Tread set. And especially if Rotom was weakened, it was another fail-safe to have. Pretty straightforward game. I'm not sure how much the game would have gone. I really don't know how the game would have gone with the miss and the freeze, but definitely early on kind of mitigated the way Blitz could have even remotely tried to win this game. I feel like he didn't really have a whole lot of tools left in his tool bag, and Lux pulls away with a pretty quick win. So yeah, let's move on to game number 3. All right, we're here for game number 3, Lucas versus Kyle. This is known as the Latios match. This was completely dominated by Latios. 3 attacks Latios with Ice Beam, Luster Purge, Thunderbolt, and Recovery Move. I still don't know why Terra Latios was priced higher than Terra Latios on the draft board. It was honestly baffling during the draft stage when I was helping Madmen. And they nearly got 2 Terra Latios just because of how criminally underrated it was by the admin team. And it kind of proved how easily it can just click in a favorable matchup like this with its type coverage plus stab combo. And yeah, I mean, once you give it an adequate stab, it's just going to click moves. It's going to click Thunderbolt here versus this team's going to click Ice Beam for things like Bramble Gas and Landorus. If the Bolt was like Terra Dragon, for example, you know, would have been able to Ice Beam that as well. And then Luster Purge kind of allows it to two-shot anything that comes in. Obviously, got to be a little bit careful against things like Empoleon, but even then, Luster Purge into a Thunderbolt with Terra Electric should be able to knock it out, even if it was like some Wakanberry set. But yeah, Weavile was benched by Lucas, but it was kind of forced to because Tauros can make an appearance here, which it did, and Vacuum Wave from Valiant was pretty powerful. But once Latios gets in, it was very difficult for Kyle to get any like reliable chip damage on it and allow that chip damage to actually stay. And now Latios eventually got recovery, a recover off. It also had leftovers, and it basically just sat on the team. The Donphan was pretty useful here with Zapdos, and the momentum of his support mons was kind of all Lucas needed to get this Latios in every time and get chip damage for it. Bramblecast came in, got one shot. I don't think he expected this Latios to do that or even have a coverage move for it. Most likely he was probably heavily prepping for CM sets or something, but 3 attacks was really all the Latios needed to do here. Scizor comes in, obviously forces a switch, U-turn, Latios comes back in, claims another kill. Basically, it was the Latios show. He had absolutely nothing for it. It got all 6 kills in this matchup. And yeah, Valiant comes in, can't do anything, even with the special attack drop. Just clicks Luster Purge, kills it, and even with that drop, it's still going to kill Bolt and Landorus. But yeah, pretty straightforward match. There was really nothing they can do. Even with the Bolt, it was kind of weird that they brought Choice Specs Terra Ghost. I thought maybe like a different type of set might have been useful here, but ultimately Latios prevails. They brought Eerie Impulse into Zapdos, and funny enough, another team brought Eerie Impulse Zapdos the game after this, so I wonder if they were looking at them and was like, oh, maybe we should add that to the team. They brought that, and then the opposing team had the regular Raging Bolt. They brought Clear Amulet on it. And I wonder if they watched that and was like, Eerie Impulse could actually be pretty annoying. But they probably were able to scout that ahead of time and mox themselves. But pretty funny to see that. But pretty dominant win for Lucas here. Pretty straightforward. He really didn't have to do a whole lot. It was just pivot, chip shit, Latios gets in, claims, 6-0s basically. Nothing really to comment more on this. Let's move on to game number 4. The Madmen up are finally on the board. It's 1-2 in the series. Hopefully they can continue to claim more wins. Let's move on to game 4. All right, we're here for game number 4. Bacon versus Banga Banga. First off, Bacon, from now on, you got to turn the timer on this guy. He was clicking at least 5 minutes per turn in this game, especially all the games I've watched with him. I know he has bad internet, and that's usually the case of why he takes forever on certain turns because the inputs don't come in. But I feel like that could be actually a pretty meta thing. Just say like you have horrendous internet that you can't have the timer on, and you can afford to spend like 5 minutes per turn, and the opponent's just gonna have to deal with that. And I will say, it almost felt like he was worse at clicking a move between turns than me, and I've lost the timer before. But Bacon does do a kind of a slow grind with his Torn, Run and Wash, and G-King here, along with his Iron Treads. He's kind of just able to slowly chip away at this Bronzong and Dragalge core, and at some point, once he does effectively chip down the Bronzong, there's nothing left for the Terra Flying Torn when he does ultimately decide to Terra it. And you guys don't get to see it at preview, but this was a Terra Ghost Enamorous. And that, I guess Terra Ghost was something that could be brought. I mean, Terra Dark was something the team was expecting here, potentially with Physical Contrary, especially since Quillfish could be brought with Intimidate to kind of check hands. That would give it a contrary boost with attack. It can run the superpower to get the defense boost. It makes it really tough to revenge with like Excalibur or Treads, for example, or even Quillfish, especially if it was Terra Dark. It would have had to run something like Toxic or Haze to kind of mitigate that. And then obviously if it ran like Agility, it would have been able to outspeed Torn, but not a whole lot here. But yeah, once Torn got in, it just clicked Terra Blast. I think it also had Hurricane as well, so it was able to kind of combo run both of those moves and choose when it wanted to click Terra Blast and not risk the Hurricane. Greninja came in. Again, you'll see it later on, but this ended up being a Scarf Enamorous, and they had a much harder time clicking here that I felt like a Scarf Enamorous should have. If it was Scarf, it probably should have been Stellar, but again, it would have been revenged by Ice Shard by Excalibur. So I think if it was to be Terra Ghost, it needed to be the physical set and not a Scarf set. I think it was a complete waste to lock that Mon into a move here, especially with like how kind of prevalent the Quillfish was going to be here. If they were going to run physical, at least make it physical to kind of break through the G-King if it was like AB, and then also punish the Quillfish if anything. But yeah, this Bronzong is going to do absolutely nothing. He pivots immaculately between Torn, G-King, kind of whittle down this Bronzong with U-turn, and then he gets in Treads to click knockoff. But this is an Assault Vest Tread, so completely choose this, and Greninja can't really do anything here. He gets Chip on it, he gets rid of the rocks, which is really nice for Bax and Torn specifically. So Greninja gets the Battle Bond boost here, but it is Life Orb, so it's going to slowly kill itself. But Bax comes in, Ice Shard knocks it out, and there's not a whole lot it can do. Now Bax can come in here. If it does knock out the hands on the following turn with a Glaive Rush or an Earthquake, which it does not, in fact, here, it would have killed the Enamorous, probably with Ice Shard at +2, or at least chipped it down to a range. But Torn comes in and clicks Terra Blast. Enamorous comes in, again, isn't going to be able to do a whole lot. He clicks Terra Blast here to get chip damage, and now he can be able to switch, sack off the Rotom, and come back in with Torn to revenge this, or he can go into his Quillfish and click Crunch, and that's basically the game. I felt like he had no real immediate offense outside of the Greninja, and he kind of had to use that as his breaker, when I felt like the Enamorous could have actually done that, and then he could have tried to win with Battle Bond Greninja. If he didn't want to run like Agility Enamorous and use that to kind of like revenge the Torn. Felt like a bit of a waste. But yeah, assuming Quillfish might be the GOAT, single-handedly stalled versus the Iron Hands, set up crucial spikes in this matchup, and then ultimately got the final kill of the match. But yeah, why don't we move on to Game 5? The series is now tied 2-2. Lucas and Bacon pipe up here with dominant wins, and we move on to Game 5. And we have Game 5 here. We have Rai versus Aki. And yeah, this game was an absolute fucking meme, if I have to be perfectly honest. It was really comical. We live commed this in chat with the team. And it was really funny. Rai trolled a little bit and changed his Mew set right before the game, which if he kept his original set, it would have straight up 6-0'd. So that's really unfortunate, but he he likes to make it harder on himself. This matchup was pretty straightforward for him, if I have to agree. And I also have to agree he got extremely lucky with his Infernape in this game. Yeah, he had a simple strategy of kind of stopping any bullshit setup sets that Aki could have brought. I mean, he had like Mega Venusaur, could have been like some like random Sun shit or Curse. Clefable with like Keyberry CM. The Latios was probably going to be like Colbert defensive. As you can see, the Infernape got a massive crit on Clefable there. Really funny. He brought Gravity, Earth-powered Landorus into the Skarmory, but Skarmory getting those key spikes. So if the Latios or the Lander switched out and came back in, it will be taking the spikes. But yeah, he brings in this Infernape. But yeah, his structure was pretty simple. The speed and priority of this entire draft is like pretty potent into the Aki's team. He didn't really have a whole lot to work with. But as you can see, Rai brought this stupid Mew set, which was Custat Berry Plot. He should have just been CM and he would have just won the game right there. Right then and there, he would have won the game. Because that was not Life Orb Landers. That was most definitely probably Yachi Berry. Gets a nice poison off on that Infernape. And then he gets a nice crit on Venusaur. So he's crit 2 of the walls with this Infernape. Infernape ends up dying here. And yeah, we were trolling saying that this Latios should have been like a Bonberry. And he should have went Mew to be safe. But that shit was definitely Colberberry. But yeah, Ryan ends up absolutely dominating this match. But I figure I might add in some of the clips, like highlight clips from the live reaction at the end of this, and then we'll move into Game 6. So here are some of the highlights. Yeah, I got it.
Punch. Oh, you think
I missed the. I need to go back and watch the first few turns.
I would assume so.
It could be quick feet.
Fast Venusaur. That's
Sucker
cringe.
punch.
Oh, we woke up instantly.
Did you say minus defense Terra IV? Bro, everybody thinks that Ursaring is broken or something.
This Ursaring is dog shit,
Come on,
bro.
You're not gonna stay in though. Come on.
Just defog. Okay.
Frog.
He's actually
I
fogged.
knew it.
They had to bring this.
Is it utility?
It is utility Latios.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, he could have doubled, I guess, if he really wanted to. Now we have.
Oh, that was really
Okay,
good.
he goes into Infernape this time.
That was really good for him.
Wait, what?
It was really good for us, yeah.
Yeah.
If the Latios is defog not locked, then it's not a Mew counter. The Infernape is not a Mew counter. The Lando and the Venue aren't Mew counters.
This
So
could just be
I would just
T-Wave,
probably
Clef.
yes,
I would
It has to be
just
played,
guarantee
but-
damage, right?
It's
we
prob-
can just blitz twice, right?
It's probably T-Wave, Clef. I mean, he can blitz or he can click Gunk.
Or gunshot.
Okay.
And it
Right.
died.
Yeah.
That. The problem is that we may not kill them with Psyshock.
No.
Maybe
I mean, it
don't
depends
prevent-
Depends how low he gets the Mew, right? This is why I kind of like to Calm Mind.
And yeah, this is why I like Carmine. Is this specific in-game Carmine Mew like completely shredded?
I already can tell
Picking
Rye's gonna be like,
himself.
I should have ran Calm Mind Mew. Be like, yeah, because you're
you know
shit.
for sure.
I mean, he had Sleep Powder Venusaur, I guess. He stayed in.
Doesn't get the roll. He got
Yeah,
yeah.
we lived. That's huge, actually.
Surely he goes ape in priority move. This is the exact scenario I told him about. I was like, why?
Please go Latios. Please go Latios. It'll be really funny.
I hope he goes Latios. Nah, he
Oh
didn't.
no.
He could preserve it. I mean, just
Uh,
save it and like keep the item. But I mean, versus Infernape, it's not
Or
going to be
he could
useful.
click Psyshock. Up is not right here.
Oh, we're cussed out.
The Infernape dies, the game is over.
The
Now
waiver.
just clicks. What's
He might just think that he's saving a sack or something.
gunshot? Yeah.
Nice
Oh,
poison.
did he
Oh,
gunk
that's
shot?
That's
pretty good.
huge.
Really lucky. Why did he gunk shot? Close combat was the play, bro.
You probably didn't want to let Venu or like Lottie in for free.
Let them in for free.
Would they have
So
taken
what?
two?
We have
Yeah.
ways around Lottie, and CC does a lot. Go Venue, we
Yeah.
can actually
Oh
just
my
go
God.
save dial since we're in
Oh
Devon.
my god, this is a crit machine, bro.
The war, the fucking stars
Eh.
are lining up.
Guy's lucky.
Deserved.
He
Do you
has to
think-
gunk again here then, yeah?
Did this
But I don't think it matters.
Lottie ever switch moves?
Did.
'Cause-
It did.
Okay, yeah.
Did you win by ice skull crashing here?
Not Scarf.
No,
You
you win
could-
with Dragon Pulsing, right?
Carrying-
Well, we don't know what the item
That's
is on
what I was
Lottie.
saying.
Well, he still has.
If it's Haban, it's a
That's
problem.
also true. Actually, you can preserve
Don't
different.
mega.
Wait, can he go Mew?
Don't mega. Don't mega and
Yeah,
Dragon Ball.
Mew would have been the play.
He can go Mew and just use the cuss
So he
step
can
to
just-
Gleam, and then because like Infernape's gonna beat the Mew anyways, and like if he switched
He just
out, he would have
preserved
died to
the
like
Evil
Spike
Suicide.
plus Poison.
You just preserve the differential at this point.
Differential doesn't matter.
Dragon Pulse. Don't mega.
Preserve.
Okay,
Nice.
well, he megaed, but
You
it wasn't
win.
Haban.
Yeah, I think it would have been safer to go Mew
Yay!
first. You got so lucky with the crit.
Way closer than yeah, he got really lucky. Well, you know,
Well, I think he deserved to get lucky. Just cause it was our team, so he deserved it.
rare game
I
of
agree,
Rye
man.
getting lucky.
So lucky. Alright, we're here for Game 6. It is DPL Sunday now for these games, and we have Sky Penguin versus Odin. Let me get this all sorted for you. But yeah, basically, Skype is a Smogon player, venturing into the draft space, and Odin is a veteran at this stage, and also is a DPL champion. So this is a very big test for Sky Penguin against a very, shall I say, a very veteran-based player. But there is a unique lead here, Buffalon, that ends up taking out Rotom Heat, and breaking Steelix's 30 in the process, so it did a lot here off of the lead. And Sky tried to trade some of his offensive threats for Odin's, and you'll see that eventually throughout the match. Especially the Mega Diancie, which is a big threat. He basically sacrificed his Kyurem Black to do that when he had a full health Steelix with Sugar Berry. But he opted not to use it early and just decided to keep it in the back, which it really didn't do anything else versus this team outside of Mega Diancie. So it was very odd that he decided to trade in that way, and he kind of lost an offensive threat here that would have helped a lot versus something like Greninja or even Manaphy, or in fact even something like Landorus. But yeah, at this point it's a slow burn from Odin as he's able to kind of slowly chip away Skype's team, and with a Scarfland Eye and a Life Orb Greninja, and the offense was not really able to keep up with Odin's remaining squad. Once he sacked the Kyurem Black, he had this kind of useless Steelix in the back. Crobat can't do it by itself. With the Uxie acting as like a perfect facilitator and pivot, Odin was able to get in Landorus and Greninja every single time, pivot between them, and basically claim Starmie, Crobat, and Greninja here, and Diancie here at the end of the game. And just from the get-go, the draft team did not have a ton of ways to pressure even a mon like Manaphy, and the Manaphy didn't even hit the field. So Odin wins this one pretty convincingly, and ultimately nets a tie for his team at 3 apiece. So basically, this is the end of that game. But yeah, Landorus comes in, knocks out Diancie, just decides to sack it as he does have Greninja in the back. Even if he rock polished, Manaphy would have been able to live a hit and knock this out. So pretty well played by Odin, and well earned to net his team a tie here after game number 6. So why don't we move into game number 7? Alright, we're here for game number 7. We have Habada versus Zooch. This is to break the tie, and basically the winner of this will confirm at least 1 point at this point in the series. So this match was really well prepped by the Doublades, to be perfectly honest. Zooch coming off a recent TGS Finals berth, he's continuing his impressive run, and especially against Habada, a person he has basically his number against. I mean, Habada has not been able to beat Zooch in the last, I believe, 3 times that they've played, to my knowledge. I'm going back to TGS. But yeah, Blastoise might be the MVP of this match. His Pokemon single-handedly kept off rocks for basically the entirety of the game. So it basically did not allow Habada to get any chip damage, especially reliably against things like Uxie, Blastoise, or even Chi-Yu, that was able to come in consistently and put on pressure. And that chip damage was actually very valuable because that seemed to be the emphasis of kind of Habada's structure. A lot of defensive mons, and mons that focused a lot on pivoting or passive chip to kind of chip things down into range for potentially the Meowscarada or the Thunder T. Tinkaton also contributed by Zooch's Tinkaton specifically contributed by consistently adding chip damage when necessary. I believe it clicked Play Rough 6 times in this game, and it was able to rack it up. You know, there wasn't really a solid fairy check outside of the Tinkaton, Mirror, and that thing was actually pretty easy to check between some of the Mons on his team. And this game felt all too controlled by Zooch, and Habita was kind of just in this blender of not being able to provide any offense to break through things quick enough, and Zooch was able to just consistently put on this pressure. And I mean, obviously it looks like Haba has the up on the number of Mons left, but he had so many Mons chipped that it was basically lights out for Sneasler if it ever hit the field. But yeah, speaking of Sneasler, it was Terra flying, and it was likely going to be Unburdened here with Acrobatics. Haba had a red card Dragalge specifically for the Sneasler, but he was forced to basically waste it on this Tinkaton, and at this point Sneasler had nothing left in its way. And yeah, I actually have to give props to them. I've seen Air Balloon on Unburdened Sneasler a lot, and it's a pretty common item that has been used to activate its Unburden. But pairing it with Substitute was actually a great bring by them. It kind of forces the opponent to attack into the Sneasler, into the Substitute, which will break the balloon. And honestly, like as you see right here, it just forces the balloon to be broken, gives him that Acrobatics Unburden boost, and that's something even a red card couldn't do on its own. So honestly, great prep by them. This was very solid game plan and win by Zooch. Honestly, not much to say here outside of Zooch just out-prepped, outplayed, and outpositioned Habita in this game, and he comes away with a pretty dominant win here, and he nets his team a point, and they're up 4-3 in the series. So now the final game, the Madmen, can they come back and secure a tie for the series for the week and end this 4-4 and have themselves secured a singular point as well, or their opposition will be able to win this series 5-3 and get 2 points into the standings. So yeah, why don't we move on to the final game of DPL Sunday for the Madmen. And here we are, we have Nick versus Zazo, Game 8. Will there be a tie for the Madmen, or will the Dublades go home basically with 2 points and the Madmen with 0? So this game was kind of a complete and total mess from start to finish. I kind of popped into this game a little bit halfway through. But I heard from the grapevine that there was some massive confidence and shit being talked about, and it was kind of backed up in the clutchest endgame of this series, in my opinion at least. The game starts with a Piloswine Mirror where they kind of just fuck around, get up rocks, classic Draft League behavior, and then Zazo then has the absolute option to go for a misclick, an absolute option to go for a misclick, yes, with Coco versus Zera, and he decides to go for the content, and I respect the hell out of that. I mean, you see right here, he clicks Thunderbolt into the Zera aura, and whether that was intentional or not, I'm going to opt to believe that he did it for the content, because it seemed like he was pretty confident with his matchup regardless. But yeah, it kind of puts him in the back foot pretty badly, as if it was a CM Coco, that probably would have been able to 1v1 this Zera aura, which didn't have Toxic. And yeah, so then Nick decides to go for the damage eventually onto the Dragonite when it does come in, instead of preserving it for the late game. Especially having already risked it versus that Katini by clicking sub and not really scouting if it was Scarf, but he did confirm it was not Scarf and it's not Boots. But yeah, Zazo basically brings a lot of setup spam cheese into this matchup, and it kind of works out. But yeah, not preserving this Zera aura was pretty bad, and he could have went into his Piloswine, which really didn't do anything else into this matchup outside of Dragonite. But he basically brings in a Celesteela here, and he's going to try and win with this, and knowing that it is probably looking like setup spam is probably a weakness policy Aegislash, we thought maybe it was going to be this type of set, and in fact it was. And luckily it didn't autotomize. I don't know if he ran max speed or not, but Celesteela might not have been max speed, so if he was max speed AG, he would have just cleaned the game right there. But yeah, basically Zazo brings the setup spam, forces trades, and Nick kind of has to pick what he needs. And honestly, I think with the Zera sack, he kind of threw away kind of his chance to win the game here. And then a massive crit comes out on that Volcarona, and it actually does end up mattering with the +2 Aquajet Calcs from this Keldeo in the end game. But I mean, he gets a para here. T-Wave Hex isn't going to do a whole lot to this Keldeo. the end of the day. And if this was special attack boosting, he might have been able to just raw T-Wave into it, but I think the Keldeo would have just not set up if that was the case. But yeah, even through all the pairs, Keldeo ends up netting a clutch sweep here, 3 kills with Mega Horn, Aqua Jet, and wins the game. And honestly, this was probably the funniest game of the entire week. I'm still going to believe that he threw for content, but that was absolutely hilarious. But Zaza secures his team win here. They get 2 points, and honestly, my team, the Madmen, they're kind of left with a lot of questions, and they're going to have to answer quick moving into week number 2. All right, so now I'm just going to wrap up week 1. So week 1 showed glimpses of the Madmen players rising to the occasion. Shoutouts to Lucas, Bacon, Rye doing what he needed to do. Did get a little bit lucky, that lucky bastard. But for others, especially the captains, definitely a wake-up call for what they need to improve on behind the scenes, whether that be prep, supporting, taking the initiative to do things a little bit earlier. I mean, a lot of things could come to mind from what I was able to observe. But again, it's still only week 1, lots of room to grow, but they can't wait too long. But there's still time to right the ship, and Coach Habita and Blitz are going to need to bring this team to the level that they foresaw themselves being at post-auction. And with that, this concludes the recaps for week 1 for the Madmen, and I will see you guys next week for week 2's action.